At our last family gathering, which was Thanksgiving, I decided that I wanted to bring a dessert to kick off the Christmas season. My dessert of choice was red and green cake. No one seemed to have a problem with it until I mentioned that my red cake would be beet cake or beetroot cake and my green cake would be kale cake. Now, I'm not a baker, but I love to bake and I love exploring different recipes and ingredients to kind of add a healthier spin to my desserts. So I've made kale cake before and my kids loved it, so I wasn't too worried about the kale cake. Now the beet cake gave me pause. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I made the beetroot cake. Alright, so let's get to it. For this cake, I decided to use all organic ingredients except for the vanilla extract. Before beginning, I gathered everything that I'd need up front. I then separated the beetroot from its stem. I cleaned the beets by rinsing them thoroughly to get rid of all of the dirt and debris. Since beets naturally have a healthy coating of dirt, a good rinse goes a long way. I went ahead and peeled off the rougher edges because oftentimes dirt can kind of hide in the crevices and I don't want any dirt in my beet cake. The recipe called for 1 cup of fresh shredded beets. I used a grater to shred my beets, but you can also use a food processor. So I want to pause right here and mention a few things. Now I made 2 batches of the beetroot cake, or cupcakes in this case. In the first batch, I grated the raw beet and then added it into the wet ingredients. In the second batch, not shown, I actually steamed the beets and then grated it and added it to the wet ingredients. The steamed beets brought out more of the beet flavor than the raw beets. So if you love beets and you want to taste it in your cake, definitely steam it first. If you are like my kids and most people and you want your vegetable completely hidden in your dessert, I would recommend to grate the raw beets or puree the raw beets. I do want to mention that presentation does matter. I'm not a baker, so I didn't think about it before, but it really is important to have a good presentation. My beet cake or beet cupcakes weren't really pretty, but they tasted good. Alright, so back to the cake. I added 4 eggs, 2 cups of sugar. I whisked those together until they were completely blended, and then I added 1 cup of vegetable oil. And I blended those together. Then I whisked in my dry ingredients, which were 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Once that was completely blended, I added 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Finally, I added a cup of grated beets and used a hand mixer to combine it all together. I just love the rich, beautiful color of this beet cake. Up until this point, I wasn't sure if I was going to make a cake or cupcake. I opted to go with the cupcakes and I put them in an oven that was preheated at 350 degrees. This took about 30 minutes of baking time in a convection oven, but just bear in mind that oven temperatures may vary. For the fake buttercream icing, I use confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar, softened butter, and beet juice. As I mentioned before, presentation matters. I wouldn't recommend garnishing your beet cake with actual beets. Here, I clearly overfilled the cupcake liners and ended up with flat hat cupcakes. So I honestly wish I had captured my family's reaction when they took the first bite. They weren't exactly very excited about it, and it's probably because they knew that the cake had beet in it, but they said it tasted all right. I definitely recommend trying beetroot cake or cupcakes. Where else can you find a cake packed with so many essential nutrients? It's a great source of fiber, potassium, iron, and vitamin C. Beets are also associated with numerous health benefits, including improved blood flow, decreased blood pressure, and enhancing exercise performance. Did you know that? So if you're like my husband who eats healthy most of the time and would rather his occasional dessert to just be dessert and not worry about trying to make it healthy, then maybe beet cake is not for you. But if you're like me, who generally eats healthy most of the time, but is always looking for additional ways to enjoy a healthy dessert, and for my kids, if you have children and you want to hide their vegetables in their treats, try it. You might like it. All right, let me know in the comments whether or not you've ever had beet cake or if you're willing to try it. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I made red and green cake, so be sure to check out my kale cake video as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you next time. God bless.